All right. Shalom, Israel. Shalom, shalom. It's your brother Obadiah from the Hopeful Elect. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In the name of his only begotten Son, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And shout out to the sister Mary of Bethany that anointed our King with the precious ointments before his burial. And also shout out to our ancestors that came before us that chose death before dishonor. But all praise to the Most High, man. Got a lesson that I planned out. It inspired me. What inspired me to make this lesson was I was in the book of John, right? In the book of John, and I was just seeing how it kept saying as it is written, as it is written. And we know when the Bible say in the New Testament, as it is written, it's referring to things that's in the Old Testament because the New Testament wasn't written yet during the time of Christ and his disciples walking on the scene. They wasn't reading from the New Testament like how we do today. So they were reading the law and the prophets, right? That's what they had, the law and the prophets. They didn't have the New Testament. So when it says as it is written, it's referring to the Old Testament and the law and the prophets. So I'm like, dang, it's a scripture that says Christ come in the volume of the book, right? He's in the volume of the book. He's everywhere. And I'm gonna prove that, Lord willing, throughout this lesson, man. But I know a lot of people like to go to Matthew 5:17 to say, well, we don't have to keep the law no more. Christ came and died. The law is done away with, and we don't have to keep what people would call the law of Moses, which I would call the laws of God, right? Because the law really came from God. Moses was the one that just told us about it, but the law really came from the Most High God, right? The God of Israel. But we're gonna touch on a little bit of that in this video, Lord willing, man. Lord willing, I can make it kind of plain. Lord willing, I can make it plain to people that may be new to the truth, or people that seeking the truth, or people that may have some people that may come in. They may be clicking on this video with already in their mind, I disagree with what he's saying. So, but Lord willing, through the Spirit, I can change your mind, man. You do have to keep the law of Moses, and Christ kept the law of Moses. But we're gonna touch on it, and he also taught people to keep the law of Moses. But we're gonna touch on that in this lesson. But let me share the screen. Let me share my screen real quick. We'll get the blowing on the shofar. We're gonna start this thing off. Start this thing off with the blowing on the shofar.
Colostrum, the sweet nectar that is every mammal's first sip. Nature's original formula for
So let me get real quick that scripture that I had paraphrased in the beginning of the video. Hebrews 10:7. He says, then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God. So, Christ come in the volume of the book. He always been spoke about in the Old Testament. He was spoke about in the Old Testament, man. And when you go back and just read it, it's like, dang, they were speaking of him. They already knew the prophecies, right? The prophets knew the prophecies. He all throughout the Bible. Genesis, he in Exodus, spoke on Exodus, he in Zechariah, he in Numbers, all type of he all in the volume of the book, man, right? Because he was here from the beginning. His spirit was here, right? When in Genesis, when he said let us make man in our image, he said let us make men in our image. So he was here from the beginning. He was here with the Most High God from the beginning. He created all of the stuff that we see now. No, but that's a video. That's a video for another. That's a topic for another time. I'll touch on that of Christ being here from the beginning. But yeah, he's in the volume of the book, man. But so when you get for an example, right? This is for an example of that Christ kept the law of Moses. This Matthew 9:20. I know people know about the woman that had the issue of blood. It says, and behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. So this when the woman, touched the hem of his garment and she was healed. So that word hem is very interesting because when you go to a different translation of Matthew 9:20 in the NLT, it says something different. It says, just then a woman who had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding came up behind him. She touched the fringe. She touched the fringe of his robe. Now, the reason why I say that's very interesting, because when you go to the law, in Numbers 15:38, it says, speaking to the children of Israel and bid them that they make them fringes. Right, that's the same thing that the woman with the issue of blood touched on Christ. She touched the fringe, so he had these on. The reason why he had these on because he was keeping the law. It says, in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the border a ribbon of blue. So he had fringes on, man. So, and these what you would call fringes right here. Excuse me. These are what you would call, These what you would call fringes, man. Right here. He had these on. It says the woman with the issue of blood touched the fringe of his garment. So that just show you, man, that, Christ, because if Christ, people say he came to do away with the law, or he came to change what the law said, that would have been a sin, because we understand, right? What is sin? What is sin? And we know he never sinned, right? He was perfect. It says 1 John 3:4. It says, whosoever committed sin transgress also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. So in order for something to be a sin, it has to transgress the laws of God, right? The Torah, right? That's how you know if somebody in sin. When you go back to the law and you find what they doing is wrong in the law, that's a sin, right? Now check this out. This is in the law. I'm going to paraphrase it. Slipped my mind. Deuteronomy 4:2, right? It says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish out from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. So it's a sin. This is in the law. It's a sin to add into the word. And it's also a sin to take away from the word. So if Christ saying, well, we don't have to keep the law no more, he taking away from what it said. He taking away from the law. Or if y'all saying Christ saying, well, he changed something, we don't have to do that no more. He taking away. That means he taking away from. He's saying basically. People don't know what they saying when you saying that Christ is saying we don't have to keep the law no more, or if you saying he changed anything from the law or messed with anything in the law, or he added something to the law. That is y'all saying he basically sinned. Y'all basically saying he sinned, man. So when you go back, we see that Christ wore fringes, which is in the law. Now check this out. This is a scripture that people like to go to, right? To say that we ain't got to keep the law. It says, think not that I come to destroy the law, which he's telling you. He's telling you in the beginning of Matthew 5:17. Don't think that I come to destroy the law. And he had to make that plain because it's nothing new under the sun, like King Solomon said. It's nothing new under the sun. You know how you have people nowadays, mainly a lot of Christian pastors, teaching his congregation, you don't got to keep the law of Moses no more. It's done away with. Christ died on the cross. He fulfilled that, meaning we don't have to keep it no more. A lot of people was teaching that back then. So Christ was telling you, don't think that I'm coming to destroy the law, because you may have had some people thinking his whole mission was to come and destroy the law, so we don't have to keep it no more. But he said, don't think that. Don't think that I'm coming to destroy the law or the prophets. Don't think I'm coming to change anything that's going on. My whole duty to come back, he said, I am not come to destroy, but he came to fulfill. So a lot of people see that word fulfill, and they say fulfill means he came to destroy, or he came to do away with. When they see that word, even though he just said he didn't come to destroy the law, they would still read this, but to fulfill, and they would say that he's coming to destroy the law. He said, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass. Have heaven and earth passed? No. One jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law to all be fulfilled. And we know we everything haven't been fulfilled yet. It's a lot of prophecy in the Old Testament that haven't been fulfilled yet. It's some prophecies of Christ in the Old Testament that haven't fully been fulfilled yet. He fulfilled the prophecies of him coming on earth the first time, but it's some prophecies spoken of him on his second return and things that he must do. So the law and the prophets haven't been fulfilled yet. So that means the law still stands. This is what Christ said. The law still stands, man. It's coming out of his mouth. This is coming out of his mouth. And people go to Paul, man, which Paul is a mighty and a skilled brother. But that's why Peter says a lot of things, or some things that Paul say, are hard to be understood. So a lot when people read about when Paul said we're not under the law, which I may do a separate video on that as well, he's not saying that we don't have to keep the law, because he also speaks about the law being he's saying the law is good and holy. He speaks positive of the law. He speaks positive of the law in certain scriptures. He says it's good for his inner man, which is his spirit. He didn't know sin. He didn't know that he was going to be. He didn't know that he was in sin without the law. Without him, the law. He reading the law and saying, "Dang, I ain't supposed to do that. I ain't supposed to do that. That's a sin." So without the law, he wouldn't have knew he was in sin. So the law was helping him. But how he speak in his epistles, people that's not skilled or they don't really study for real, or they haven't really read the Old Testament, you're not going to truly understand what Paul is speaking of. And that's not a shot to nobody, but it's the truth. That's why Peter said what he said. But he said, to heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law to all be fulfilled. So what is he talking about when he said, but to fulfill? What is he talking about? What do he mean by to all be fulfilled? Let's go. When you go to Luke 24 and 44, it says, and he said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled. So this is what he's talking about. He's not saying fulfilled, meaning all things must be done away with. No, this is what he means when he said fulfilled in Matthew 5 and 17. All things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. So he had to fulfill the prophecies that were spoken of him. Now, and I got some examples. Of what he's talking about. Now, when he said all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses. Let's get an example of what he's saying about the law of Moses. Because we understand that Christ is that Passover, right? Christ was that perfect lamb without blemish. When we keep the Passover, we understand that Christ is that lamb. He is that perfect sacrifice. This is why we're not supposed to break the Passover lamb, because it foreshadows Christ. It's Christ. So it says Exodus 12:46. In one house shall it be eaten. Speaking of the Passover lamb, thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh a bride out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. So the Bible said you're not supposed to break the bone of the Passover lamb. So when you go to John 19:36, it says, for these things were done that the scripture should be fulfilled. See that? Same word usage. The scripture should be fulfilled. What did Christ do? He came to fulfill the scriptures that were spoken of him. A bone of him shall not be broken. So although it's talking about the Passover, the physical Passover lamb, it also spoke of, it was twofold. It was speaking of Christ as well, because he was and is the Passover lamb. So he was spoken about in Exodus. It may have went over a lot of people's heads. So when it said, when you go back to Luke, it says, I'm only getting a few of them. It's plenty of them, but I'm only getting a few of them just to show you. That was one in the law of Moses. It says, and in the prophets. So the prophets spoke of Christ. What did one of them speak about him at? When you get Zechariah, right? Zechariah 12:10. Zechariah 12:10. He said, He said, I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. So this is what I'm saying. Christ came in the volume of the book, man. He's speaking through Zechariah right now. He says, he said, and they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced. Remember that he said, we know Zechariah didn't get pierced. He said, they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, and one mourneth for his only, mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. So when you read this, what you think about when you read Zechariah 12:10? What you think about? I know when I thought about it, or I know what I thought about when I read this. I'm thinking about the crucifixion. I'm thinking about the crucifixion, right? You know, it said they're gonna look upon him. That's, you know, people looked upon Christ when he was pierced, and people was mourning and crying, you know, because he just got pierced. So you go to John 9:37, and again another scripture says, they shall look on him who they pierced. So that goes back to Zechariah. It was speaking of Christ. So he came to fulfill this prophecy that he was going to be pierced, and people was going to mourn and see him pierced. And they saw him pierced. They're going to look on him whom they pierced. See that? So that's one of the prophecies that the prophet said. Let's see another one. Psalms 22:16, or Psalm 22:16. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. So he was also Christ, like I said, like the scripture said, he come in the volume of the book. He's speaking through David right now. We know David didn't get pierced in his hands and his feet. That ain't happened to him. But we know who that happened to, right? It says they pierced my hands and my feet. Speaking of Christ. So that was a scripture. That was also a precept going back to what we just read in John and Zechariah. How he was going to be pierced, how his hands and his feet was going to get pierced. Speaking of, it was a prophecy of Christ, right? In Exodus, Passover lamb was a foreshadowing of Christ. But my nose keep running. Salaki, my man. Now when you go back to Luke, it said the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. We just read what it said in the Psalms concerning Christ. Let's get some more. And in the prophets. Here go another prophet spoke of Christ. Zechariah. It said, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh upon thee. He is just and having salvation. Now, hold up, man. This got to be talking about Christ. Who else is this talking about? They speaking of, Zechariah is speaking of Christ. It said he come with having salvation. He's our king. He said, lowly and riding. Wasn't Christ lowly? Right? Then he tell people, then he tell some people, they don't mention, what I did. Don't tell nobody what I did. He wasn't out here, I did this, bragging. No, Christ was lowly, man. He was meek. He said, and riding upon an ass. So it said, this person, whoever Zechariah talking about, is coming with salvation, lowly, and he come riding upon an ass and upon a coat, the fowl of an ass. Now, when you go to Matthew 21:2, saying unto them, go into the village. This is Christ saying. He said, go into the village over against you, and straightway you shall find an ass tied in a coat. What did you say to Zechariah? He's gonna ride upon an ass and upon a coat. What is Christ telling his disciples to grab so he can get on it? He told them to find an ass tied in a coat with her loose and bring them unto me, because he understood the prophecy. That's what he came to do. He didn't come to do away with the law or the prophets. He came to fulfill what was spoken of him. So this is why he's telling his disciples to grab that. I need that. Let me see if I can get him. He riding on it. Look at this. 21:4. All this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, it's talking about Zechariah. Tell ye the daughter of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek, and sitting upon an ass, in a coat the fowls of the ass. So he fulfilled that. He came to fulfill what was spoken of him. That's his whole duty of him coming. He came with salvation as well. Now, that's the last one I had. Now this one, you see what Christ said. He didn't come to destroy. Now y'all understand when he's in Matthew 5:17 when he said he didn't come to destroy the law, or he didn't come to do away with the law or change anything. He came to fulfill his duty, his mission of what people spoke of him, what was said of him in the beginning of the book. So that's his whole duty, man. He never came, because he also came to teach it right and correctly. Because you had the scribes and the Pharisees, they were teaching the law. You know what I'm saying? They were teaching the law, but there was also hypocrites. They wasn't doing what the law said a lot of times, and sometimes they would tighten up what the law say. For an example, right? We know that you're not supposed to, the Sabbath. The Sabbath day is a day of rest. So you're supposed to work, and things like that, right? But they were saying it's a sin, to pick corn on the Sabbath. That's not work. Picking corn on the Sabbath is not work. But they would tighten it. They were basically like making it a stronghold for people, for them to keep it. They were teaching the law, but they were kind of making it stronger than what it was, and making people it felt like a burden for people instead of them freely want to keep it. So that's why Christ was coming and teaching how he was teaching. And I'm gonna show you something real quick. This Matthew 23:1. Matthew 2. I'm gonna start at this is scripture that shows that Christ telling you to keep the law without saying it. Then spake Yahushua to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So if the scribes, what did Moses do? What did Moses teach? Moses taught the law, right? So the scribes and Pharisees sit in his seat, so they're doing the same thing. They're teaching the people the law. It says, all therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observing you do. So this is very important because Christ is telling his disciples, whatever the scribes and Pharisees tell you to do or teach you, do that. Now, what were the scribes and Pharisees known for? They were known for teaching the law. They were wise men when it came to the laws and the commandments and teaching it. When it come to doing it, a lot of them wasn't doing it. Some of them was, though. All scribes and Pharisees wasn't wicked. I know some people may think all the scribes and Pharisees were wicked. No, a lot of them were, but some of them wasn't wicked. You know, so some of them were hypocrites, but the ones Christ speaking about, they were hypocrites. But he's telling you to do what they do, or do what they not do what they do, but do what they tell you to do because they're telling you right. They're telling you to keep the laws of God. So observe that and do it. They're telling you about the dietary law in Leviticus 11. Do that. They're telling you about the feast days in Leviticus 20 and 3. Do that. They're telling you about your fringes, teaching you about your fringes. Do that. Right? They're telling you about loving your neighbor as yourself and giving to the homeless and being a father to the fatherless and looking out for the widows. Do that. He said, but do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. He's saying, but don't do after their works, though. Don't do what they do, though, because they may tell you to do something and it's coming out the Bible, but you may catch them on another day and they doing the complete opposite of what they told you to do. So don't do what they do, but do what they say because they know what they're talking about, but they just don't do what they're talking about. That's what Christ told them. So Christ is telling his disciples, man, bro, keep the law, man. Keep the law. Right? So all praise to the Most High, man. Lord willing, this is there anything else I wanted to touch on? But I think that's it. But all praise to the Most High, man. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Lord willing, whoever needed to get an understanding on this, got an understanding of what he truly meant when he said what he said in Matthew 5 and 17. When he said he didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. We now understand that when he's talking about fulfill, he don't mean do away with. He means to fulfill the things that were spoken of him in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms. Right, so this your brother Obadiah, man, from the Hopeful Elect. Salakia. Yeah, this your brother Obadiah from the Hopeful Elect, man. Lord willing, I'll see y'all next time through the Spirit. Y'all stay encouraged, stay in your word, man. Continue to fight the good fight. You know, we almost out of here. I know y'all see what's going on in the news. You know, with Iran and America, you know, is heating up. It's heating up, and these are the times that the prophet spoke about that came before us, and we are finally being able to witness this thing blow up. So y'all stay watching, man. Y'all stay tuned because it's finna get bad out here. But yeah, shalom.